Welcome to a Mind Valley Masterclass with a man who is genuinely a living legend. He's actually sitting right next to me right now, but I am kind of freaking out because I've been studying this guy's work for 20 years, and finally I get to actually bring him on Mind Valley. So folks, let me tell you why I'm so excited to have Dennis Waitley join us today. Dennis told me something just before we started this recording. He said within all of us, we have more potential that we could possibly use up in 100 lifetimes, but most of us don't. He said that if you compare Olympians with the average man or woman, all of us have that same unpolished gem within us. We all have the same capabilities. We just use them differently. Think about an Olympian, right? Within a few seconds, that Olympian has to make decisions that's going to determine whether years and years and years of training is going to pay off with a medal or a loss. Where does that mindset come from? If we're all made of the same stuff, what if we could pluck out that mindset of the astronaut or the Olympian and apply it to our day-to-day living as we go through our careers, as we go through our lives as parents, as spouses, as lovers, as human beings? What would happen if we could bring these ideas into our lives? And that's where Dennis excels. In this class, Dennis is going to uncover for you 5 principles, 5 powerful ideas that when you take into your own understanding, something beautiful happens. Basically, you become your own greatest mentor and role model. You become your own greatest best friend, your own greatest coach, your own greatest inspiration. That's how powerful these 5 techniques are. And we're gonna go right into them with Dennis Waitley. So before we get started, let me just give you a glimpse of what Dennis Waitley has accomplished. Firstly, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, who's one of the fathers of personal development, said, Dennis Waitley is one of the most inspiring men of our time. John Wooden, the famous coach, said, my advice is to read and listen to everything you can from this man. Stephen Covey, the legendary Stephen Covey, said, his material is so fresh, so relevant, so needed, so beautifully expressed, and so vital to the kind of change we must all undergo to succeed in this whitewater world of today. But it's not just those remarkable endorsements that make Dennis Waitley such an incredible teacher, someone I'm so honored to be bringing to you. It's that Dennis Waitley actually created and recorded the best-selling audiobook program of all time in human history. According to Publishers Weekly, his program, The Psychology of Winning, has sold 2 million copies, generated $100 million in sales, and to this day is one of the single best-selling audiobook personal growth programs in the world. And that is the ultimate testament to how powerful this man's ideas are. But a couple of other things you might find fascinating about today's trainer. He was the chairman of psychology for US Olympians in the 1980s. He was hired to train astronauts. He's been hired to speak and motivate the staff of major corporations like Microsoft. He is perhaps one of the greatest coaches America has ever produced. So let's bring on our guest for today, Dennis Waitley.
Well, Bishan, it's great to be with you. I almost applauded because I didn't recognize who you were announcing.
One thing I love about you, Dennis, is you are so beautifully modest about what you've accomplished.
Well, I've made every mistake you can make as a child, as a husband, as a father, as a grandfather. So I've made every mistake, and so I need to be humble, because if you're not humble, arrogance is God's gift to shallow people.
Then before you begin with your humble story, Dennis, you got to hear the story, folks, because it's so beautiful and humane. But before you begin with your humble story, requirement has it that I have to read your bio. Okay, so just sit there and blush, Dennis. So Dennis is an author, consultant, speaker, named to the International Speakers Hall of Fame, addressed and worked with top executives, astronauts, Olympic athletes, one of America's most respected authors, keynote lecturers, and productivity consultants. His programs have sold 10 million copies. His books have been translated to 14 languages and is one of the most listened to, if not the most listened to, voice in personal and career success. He's the author of 60 nonfiction books and considered to be one of the fathers and pioneers of the self-development industry, along with Jim Rohn, Les Brown, and Earl Nightingale. Blushing yet?
A little bit too much. In fact, some of them get up and say, you know, Dennis was one of my mentors. And I said, no, you're in your 60s. Don't say that.
And in those many, many, many long years, I know you've made just about every mistake possible. And that's one of the most fascinating things about you. Tell us your story, Dennis.
Well, that's a typical story. In fact, I'm like Johnny Everyman. I'm like everyone in the audience. I was raised here close to where we film this, in a poor family. And my mother and father argued every night. And so I used to say my prayers, guide me never to drink, never to smoke, and never to get married, because that seemed to be the problem that we had in the family. They were divorced when I was a little boy, and I took over about the age of 9. My mother, because she was bitter after being divorced, kind of took it out on us 3 children. So I decided that every time she was negative, I would be positive in order to survive. And I rode my bike about 20 miles to my grandmother's place so I could mow her lawn and get some encouragement. And I learned from my grandmother that I was a good boy, that I was okay, because my father said, you'll never live in a good house. That's where the rich people live, and they're born that way or crooked. So we thought in order to be wealthy or successful, you had to be slick and crooked. And so I didn't think I could amount to anything. I was called beaver teeth, buzzard beak, motor mouth, turtle breath, and Dumbo ears. My ears were the same size when I was a little boy as they are now. That's why I covered them with hair. So I come from a poor family where my father made $200 a month. He died as a penniless alcoholic. And I said, how can I break out? And so what I did is I had to do good in school, in sports, and be a good guy in order to overcome my insecurity. So I grew up with low self-esteem, insecurity, not feeling I could be anyone. And I went to the Naval Academy, and then I became a pilot. But then I had children, and then I got divorced. And then I looked at myself and said, you're a loser. You've done these things. You've flown a plane 500-600 miles an hour. You've been Naval Academy. You've done this. You've done that. But you're not married. You have custody of your children, and they want to live in California, and you're stuck here in the deepest winter in Pittsburgh. So I wrote The Psychology of Winning. I hate to tell you this, at the worst time in my life. So instead of writing a program or a book as a result of all the great things that you've accomplished in your life, I wrote the book as a lesson for me on how to turn a loser into a winner, how to turn somebody who's mediocre into a champion, and I wrote it for me.
But see, now that's what I find so mystifying. Most people who write legendary programs, and The Psychology of Winning, by the way, sold 2 million copies, the audio program. But you're saying you wrote that as a loser. You hadn't accomplished much. So where did that wisdom come from?
I reached deep inside. I began to study people in every field. And I'd been working with the prisoners of war from Vietnam. And they played golf in their mind for 5.5 years. And I thought, if they could be in a cell for 5.5 years with nothing to do but think, what would you think about? And they thought about going home, and they began to recreate passages from the scriptures. And the POWs actually were doing within when they were doing without. And I took my Navy pilot training, set goals and get there, simulate, internalize, and then fly the plane. And I took Navy pilot, prisoner of war. I was training astronauts. See, that was the problem. I was doing things that were really supposed to be important, but my personal life was a shamble. I wasn't making any money. I didn't have a new job. And I wrote The Psychology of Winning with no job in sight, no money saved, and children who wanted to go home. And so I said, I looked out the window like we do, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm a loser and I'm not going to take it. So what I did is took all the research that I'd done, and I took the term POW, prisoner of war. I said, wait a minute, Prince of Wales, power of women, putting on weight. What does POW mean? Psychology of winning, of course. Life is a perception through the eye of the beholder.
And
It's not what happens to you, it's how you take it.
well, I find that story so absolutely mystifying. It reminds me of Neil Donald Walsh's story. He wrote Conversations with God when he had just come out of being homeless, actually collecting used bottles on a street. And that became another best-selling book. But that leads to the question, Dennis, how did that come out of you?
Well, this is so important for everyone watching because I'm no different than everybody else. It's just I finally had an aha experience. Now remember, my grandmother, I went over to her house to mow her lawn. She said I was a good boy, so she gave me encouragement. But she was a proofreader, and my grandfather had a bookstore. So my library card in those days became better than a MasterCard. And I read everything I could get my hands on. I just became a sponge for all the great knowledge of the world. So I was a great reader. So I had the stuff inside, but I had to reach inside. And here's the real tip. Most people do their best work at the worst of times, because when things are going well, you coast. And when things are going downhill, you really coast. But if you're going uphill, you have to pedal. So I find that this is the best time for anyone to be successful if you're struggling, if you're saying, I've got to make it, I've got to do it. So I had to reach inside at the worst of times and bring out the best that was in me. So I reached back to my childhood, my grandmother, the things I'd read, the prisoners of war, the astronauts, the Navy pilot, and I said, wow, there is a program that you do. There is a way to turn negatives into positives, failure into fertilizer.
So two things I observed Dennis say that I think are really interesting and it's worth making a mental note. Number one, often as you're going through the hardest moments of your life, that's when the greatest breakthrough is going to happen. But it's the second thing, which I think I'm getting out of your story, which I think is really key here. You'd been reading all of these personal growth books. You had access, you said, to your grandfather's library. But you still considered yourself in some ways a failure. Your life wasn't getting anywhere. But it was in the depth of your failure, the deepest moment of your failure, when you decided to actually take that knowledge and write your manifesto, which became the psychology of winning. That's when things started going up.
Exactly. That's when I had a moment of truth. A moment of truth is when you say, wait a minute, what am I doing? How do I change? And you only begin to change. But it took me quite a while. I mean, I wasn't an overnight success then. It took me 2.5 years to bring the psychology of winning to the public, because who wants to listen to a loser?
So it goes to show that you can have all of that knowledge, but until you actually commit to it and you actually turn it from knowledge to application, that's when things really change. And is that what happened for you?
Absolutely. I had it all inside all the way. I was a POW, a prisoner of my own world. And I had to reach inside and say that the value was already there, just waiting for me to bring it out, cut and polish it, like we said, and turn myself into a winner. And it was the most exciting journey of my life to go at that point, because remember, I was already in my middle 30s.
Right.
So I wasn't just a young guy just starting out. I had been around. I had 4 children. I mean, I didn't just have one little child. I had 4 children. I had worked with Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio vaccine. I'd worked with I'd already worked with these people. So in other words, I'd already done some of these things in the 60s and early 70s, but they didn't amount to anything. They were fleeting success. You know, we have temporary, fleeting success where you get up there and I had a leak in my self-esteem. I had a leak in it and I had to keep pumping it up, but it never filled up. It always leaked out because it was not permanent.
And the result is Dennis produced The Psychology of Winning, which went on to get published by Nightingale Conant,
Right.
sold 2 million copies, became the single best-selling personal growth audiobook program in all time, hit 100 million in sales. And I think that is one of the key things that so excites me about your work, because it's spread by word of mouth. People were telling their friends about it. Dennis received 200,000 letters from people over the last couple of decades about how this idea, the psychology of winning, fundamentally changed their lives. So Dennis, let's begin with our training for today. winning from within. What is that process that our audience would need to look at, to go through, to help unleash that diamond from inside?
Well, that's really a good question, and I'm really glad you asked that because it's so exciting to me to tell you that it is a step-by-step process. There is a beginning, and the beginning is to look in the mirror. What lies behind the eyes? When you look in the mirror, there are three people: child of your past, person you are today, and the person you'll surely become tomorrow. The question is, who are you going to become tomorrow based upon what you're thinking today? You see, there's an interesting thing. You never make a decision on what's happening. You make your decisions today based on what happened before. So you're always doing things based upon past knowledge. Past thoughts equal present behavior. So the very first step is to step back from the canvas of your life and say, given my parents and my background, given my education and my knowledge, what is it that I've got working for me? What is at the core? And that is the idea of self-reflection. Who am I? What are my talents? How do you know? Who told you? Your report card in school doesn't really show you your talent. It just shows you whether you studied hard, or whether you had a good teacher, whether you did your homework, whether you wanted to get A's. But your real talents were given to you at the moment of your conception. When you were conceived, it's as if a magic wand was raised over you and you were given all the value you'll ever receive. So all the talent is given to you at conception, and your job in life is to reach inside and discover what's inside of you. And so I had to go through that. I had to say, let's see, what did I love to do when I was a little boy? When I was a little boy, I loved to read, I loved to write, I liked to talk. Read, write, talk, play sports, be nice to people, sing. And so I found out that my natural gifts were in verbal and writing and in the ability to memorize. So I dusted off my childhood, which is the first thing you should do, is dust off your childhood. What did you love to do when you were 7 to 17? Those are your natural gifts because you do what you love when you're young, and then you begin to learn to do what adults want you to do. So the first thing you do is you dust off your childhood, and then you look at your report card. Sure, but what did you love to do in school? What did you love to do after school? What do you love to do most today? What do you like to do when you're not working? Your hobby may become your natural gift and your passion. You may be chasing money instead of your passion. You may be a slave to your income and not able to break out and find the diamond within you. So the first step is to say, okay, what have I got going for me? What are my greatest strengths and what are my greatest weaknesses? In this program, the most important thing is to say one thing: I'm as good as the best, but no better than the rest. I'm as good as anyone who's ever been born, but no better. Therefore, I'm not superior. I just want to reach my potential based upon my internal belief system. First step, look in the mirror and then be honest.
So Dennis, what you were saying is that the passions that we had from 7 to, what age did you say, 21?
17.
7 to 17
Yeah.
are the ones that often are the gifts that we get to bring into the world. But most of us end up diverting ourselves from those passions to follow what schools and society might tell us we need to do.
Absolutely.
That's very true. And for those of you listening, ask yourself that question. Was that true for you? I know one thing really interesting for me is that from 7 to 17, I was really into personal growth. I was reading the works of people who were amazing authors at that time. Guys you know personally, like Brian Tracy, Wayne Dyer, Jose Silva. And I felt like I was kind of this outcast among other teenagers because I seemed to be the only one interested in that. Of course, today, that is my career. That's what I built my company on. What was it for you? What was it that might have made people tell you that you were an outcast for, or that you were a little bit weird because you enjoyed?
That's a really good point. You know, the thing there that's so important is there was a British study done, and they took 50 children age 7, and they asked them what they loved to do, and the children were all excited because they were only 7 years old. And then they got them together again when they were 14, and then when they were 21, and then when they were 28, and then when they were 35. And at age 35, they had this crisis. I'm not doing what I love to do. I got off track somehow. And by the time they were 42, another 7 years, they began to go back to what they loved to do when they were a child. They went full circle. 7, when you're 7, you're ready to go. When you're 14, I don't know, peer group, peer pressure, you gotta be cool. When you're 21, you gotta march in step. When you're 28, we got kids, we got the mortgage to pay. When you're 35, we're worried about, putting away for retirement, getting ahead. When we're 42, we say, what's it all about? What am I gonna do? And many times we go back, which is kind of what I did. I went back to doing what I did best when I was a kid.
Which for you was?
Blah, 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 blah. I used to talk a lot. I used to talk in school, talk to the teachers. The teacher would say, chatterbox. Your son talks too much. He's talking all the time. And I would talk to the neighbors. I would sing to the neighbors. They'd give me a cookie. You sing, you get a cookie. You talk, you get a poem, you get something. Hey, I like to talk. Read, talk, write, and be active. That's what I do now.
Amazing, amazing. Now, but here's the question, right? So I loved personal growth. Even as a 14-year-old, that's when I first started reading personal growth books. I love being on stage. In my case, it was theater. Being in front of the camera right now is no different. So I'm actually doing what I'm doing now. But like many of you guys, I got diverted. I ended up studying computer engineering because I'm Indian. And if you grow up in an Indian family, you are either going to grow up to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or family embarrassment. And so I wanted to study drama and theater, but I ended up studying computer engineering, which I had no interest in because I felt I had to. And many of you guys may have been in that same sticky situation. How do we correct ourselves? Because I'm sure there's some risk and apprehension towards it.
Tremendous risk, and your story is kind of like mine as well. War on, Korean War, get drafted, no, go to the Naval Academy, of course. After the Naval Academy, the war's still on, become a pilot, become a Navy pilot. Can you imagine a guy like me, who's a poet and a writer and a talker, talking to my airplane, trying to make it land on a carrier,
right,
in the middle of the night, in the fog, with no Homer on the carrier? My flight mates were frightened to death, saying, oh my gosh, Whately's leading the flight. All he wants to do is talk to the whales. This guy is a poet, and he's flying a $10 million aircraft with a nuclear weapon underneath. So the worst possible career for me would have been to be a nuclear weapons delivery pilot when I wanted to be a writer, author, talker, nice guy. So in order to change, I had to go back to my childhood, and I had to begin doing at night and on weekends when everyone else is watching television. Everyone else is into sitcoms and into comedy. You see, what they're doing is escaping from the goals they didn't set and the careers they didn't want. And they're using television and other activities to make up for the mediocrity and the drudgery of life, right? So they're doing things that are tension relieving instead of passion achieving. Tension relieving is when you watch other people making money, having fun. You watch them having fun, they're getting the ratings, they're having fun, they're making the money, and we're watching because it's so easy to get lost in someone else's success. What I had to do is say, wait a minute, I'm wasting my life watching them enjoy their lives. So that's why I decided to go back and at night speak. And Zig Ziglar and I gave 500 speeches before we were paid. My first paid speech was $45. It was a women's club, and they just wanted a speaker for the day. And then I spoke to the Kiwanis and the Rotary and the Lions Club, and hundreds of speeches. When? At night and on weekends. Why? I have a job. I have to work. So what you do is you, in your prime time, your free time, you live your passion, because you don't just quit and chase your dream.
Because that would be risky.
You earn your money and you do things in prime time when everyone else is watching. And that was the biggest breakthrough for me, is to start doing and sit there and stop viewing. Stop viewing, start
Right.
doing.
So question to you watching is, what can you do in your prime time to help you steer back towards your passion? In my case, I was working in technology sales in New York. Couldn't stand my job. And in my prime time, I thought myself web programming, built a website to sell meditation courses. And I was teaching meditation classes in my prime time for very little money. But it's because I was obsessed with personal growth and I wanted to be in front of an audience teaching. So what is it that you could do in your prime time? I think that was the first key.
Absolutely.
Now let's go on to the second item.
The second item would be, you got to be honest with yourself. I mean, self-trust. All relationships are based on trust. Break the trust, you break the relationship. So trust is, don't be a phony. Don't try to live somebody else's dream. Don't be a Tony Robbins if you're not a Tony Robbins. Don't be a celebrity. In other words, be real. And that's why you get to know yourself first. You look back and you say, okay, this is who I am. I'm humble, I'm more introverted, I'm maybe not that exciting. And then when you speak to people, always tell the truth. The problem with being dishonest is that at the most important time in your life, you're a leader, you've made money, people look up to you, and then they lift up the curtain, and the Wizard of Oz wasn't a wizard after all. He was just a human being. And what we tend to do sometimes is try to take our resume and spruce it up too much.
Right.
When you're young, nobody checks because you're not important. But when you're important, everybody checks. So why should you have an investigative reporter? And why should you have somebody lift up the curtain on your life? Why not be real all the way? You've got so much value, you don't need to exaggerate what you do. And so telling the truth and being honest and having non-situational integrity, and I teach high school kids this. Mm-hmm. Most fun for me is to go into high school, and this would be good for you who have children. I throw a wallet on the floor in front of the high school and it has $800 in it. It's got credit cards and a photo ID. And I said, do you find it on the street? You're coming home from school, what do you do? And they said, we take the money out and maybe try to send the wallet back. I said, you mean finders, keepers, losers, weepers? They say, yeah, the money's there. I took the money. They didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, wait a minute now. You'd do that if it was your mother's wallet? They said, well, I'd take $200 out. I said, what if it was your neighbor's wallet and she was on dialysis and it was the only money she had? I'd give it back then. I said, oh, I see. So you're honest in certain situations when it's important to you to be honest, but you're dishonest in order to get ahead. Expediency. Then I reverse the situation. You're on your way to Australia on a youth program. You go in the bathroom and get yourself fixed up before you get on the plane, but you leave your wallet. It's got $800 for the whole trip in it. And you leave it in the restroom. You go back on the plane. You realize you've left it in there, and you run back. What do you hope? They said that our wallet is still there with the $800 in it. I said, of course, but what if someone like you is there?
Right.
And they say, well, in that case, I'd leave it. And I said, what if the security guard picked it up? What if somebody else is not as honest? So what's the message? And the message is, treat everything that you find as if it were your own. And not do unto others the way they should do unto you, but do unto others the way they should be done unto, to make them be all they can be. So I always treat everyone as if they are an executive with great potential. And I try not to tell people things that are not true. Wow. Just to make myself feel good. That's why I told you that I wrote The Psychology of Winning While I'm Losing. I don't like to say that. I would rather say, as a result of my life, as a result of all of my accomplishments and the money I've made, I wrote this program based upon my success. And if you will listen to my webinar, I'll give you everything that I learned and being a champion that I am. No.
Right.
I'm going to teach you everything I learned from my own mistakes and having to dig back deep inside at the worst of times to turn them into the best of times. So to me, I'm like Jiminy Cricket. I'm like your little grasshopper on your shoulder that says, come on now, you can do it. So the self-trust is the important thing, just to be real and be honest. You don't need to fake it till you make it. That's not what astronauts do. Astronauts go no train, no gain. They simulate in the most realistic situations that are most like the moon, because you must be on the moon in your mind before you can go to the moon for real. So you don't fake it till you make it. You make the training as realistic as possible, as really what you want to do and as passionate.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's something that's so beautiful about you, Dennis. So, backstory, but I was not expecting you on this webinar to say that you wrote The Psychology of Winning, not after years and years and years of research and putting it all in a test in your own life. But you were directly honest, and you said you wrote this when you were actually failing. And that was one thing really interesting that I observed about this man. But there's something else which you guys probably didn't see, but it happened backstage. So when I showed up here on this set, and I was speaking to some of the guys here behind the cameras, and Tiffany, who's our producer back there, and they were talking about how you had come here a day earlier to check out the set, and how you kind of mystified them because they are used to these big, incredible speakers. But in your case, they said you were so humble. You made everyone feel special. You listened to everyone. You were just one of the genuinely nicest men they had ever met. And it occurred to me, you said just a couple of minutes ago, whenever you meet anyone, you treat them like they are an important executive, no matter where in life they are.
That's one of the most important things I ever learned, and that's number 3. Number 3 is core values.
Can we just pause? Just want to appreciate you for a second, because I just think what you said was just so beautifully profound.
Thank you.
Okay, now you can go to number 3.
Okay. Thank you, Bishan. I really appreciate that. And that brings us to point number 3, which is core value. And I can't think of anything more important than the internalization of non-material value. A stretch limousine, a person riding in it, to me has inverse self-esteem. In other words, the stretch of the limousine is what makes them important. And so they feel that they need the limousine for self-importance. But if you got the real thing, you don't have to have a loud, expensive imitation. Because only people with core values can afford to be modest. And you talked about being modest.
Right.
Can you imagine somebody who has a lot going for them? Let's say they're a movie actor, Olympic athlete, Super Bowl champion, astronaut. They've done it all. Wouldn't you think that they would be the nicest person in the world because of everything they've got going for them? They're good looking, they're rich, they're powerful, they're famous, everybody loves them. Wouldn't you be humble and giving and nice because after all, you've already got it? So why wouldn't you give away all the value that you have? Because you don't lose it when you give it away. You still have it. You're just sharing it with other people. And that's why it's so important to take a look at yourself as a diamond in process. I'm a diamond being cut and polished. Given my parents and my background, I'm glad I'm me. I'd rather be me than anyone else living at any other time in the world. I'm not the best looking in the group. I just look my best in the group. I don't need designer clothing. I can, as long as they're clean, and as long as I make a presentation, when I walk in a room, I just want people to say, looks good to me. Let's see what they've got. Smile. I'm okay inside. I give them my hand. Let me stop you. I look in your eyes and I say, you're valuable and I'm valuable, so we share eye contact together. When they give me a compliment, I say, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And by the way, you look good too. So I always pass it on and pay it back. Somebody pays me a compliment, I accept it. You know what I did when I was the loser? In fact, this was in the Psychology of Winning preamble as I'm writing it. Gee, Dennis, pretty good. Is that a new suit? No, actually, I was going to give it to the Salvation Army of the Goodwill. Is that a new tie? No, I've got mustard on it, actually. New shoes? No, the heels are run down. Gee, Dennis, great golf shot. Yeah, I closed my eyes and swung. Do you know I give people compliments? I've said to her, you have beautiful hair. She says, split ends. Need to go to the beauty parlor. Every time I give a compliment to somebody that doesn't have core value, they throw it back nervously as if they don't deserve it. But winners accept graciously the value that is bestowed upon them by others, and they're very gracious with the value that they have. So the only thing you ever need to say is, thank you very much, I appreciate it, and accept every gift that's given to you, rather than trying to say that I'm not worth it. You see, humility is serving others with grace. Humiliation is when you talk yourself down to make other people look good. So the important part of core value, it's a total package. Clean, smiling, optimistic, the way I talk. When I answer the phone, I always give my name. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I want them to know it was me? Right. Instead of saying, hello, I say, hi, Dennis Waitley. And they say, we know, Dad. And I said, no, in case it wasn't you. So I give my name, and I always give my name first when I'm introducing. I say, hello, I'm Dennis, or I'm Dennis Waitley. What's your name? And I try to repeat their name, because if I don't, I'll forget it. And then that's the worst thing you can do, is forget the value that just walked in front of you. So I say, very nice to meet you, Vishen. Very nice to meet you, Stephanie. Very nice to meet you. And I try to remember that value that they gave me. But there's an instantaneous impression. Usually it's within the first 3 minutes. And people make their mind up about you very quickly. And they make it up based upon body language, the way you walk, the way you talk, how humble you are. And if you must speak, ask a question, because too many people like me like to talk. So I've learned with my children the hard way to ask them questions and then be quiet. And that way I'm drawing out of them their value. So this core value thing is so important, because all the potential you'll ever have is already there. You couldn't use, as we said, in 1,000 lifetimes, your potential. You could memorize everything on Google, because Google is Googling what's in the brain, and the brain invented Google and the computers and interactive and everything. So a human brain does all this stuff naturally, and we could memorize Wikipedia from A to Z easily. It just is we're lazy and we don't want to do that, but we could easily. We have this enormous capacity. So the thing to do is say, okay, I'm a winner. I like myself. Not I love myself to the point where I'm better than others, but I appreciate myself and my value. And you do that because you give more in service than you receive in payment. And if you're the kind of person that gives more in value than you receive in payment, you'll be sought after for the rest of your life. Everyone wants someone who gives more than they get. And if you're that kind of person that has plenty of value to share, plenty at the core, and if you can understand that you're as good as anyone who's ever been born, but no better, that will keep you humble. And that humility will be the thing that will set you apart from the people who shout the loudest, because the people that are loud and aggressive are actually calling for help. They need the attention. They need the boister. They need the bluster in order to be important. That's why people with low self-esteem are loud, angry, putting you down, because they need the power over you. But if you got the power, you can be gentle. You can even be introverted. You don't have to make a splash. You can make a ripple, but that ripple will last a long time.
So poetically, beautifully said. And I love how number 2 and number 3 tie together.
Number they really do.
They do, yeah. Number 2 is about being honest about yourself and treating everyone like they are an important executive. And number 3 is about, as you do that, understanding that you are fundamentally important as well, and having that faith and that belief and that love for yourself, but without seeing yourself as being more important than anyone else.
Yes, but then that brings us to number 4. And I forgot that when I was writing The Psychology of Winning. Then I knew that I wasn't doing number 4, and number 4 is personal responsibility for taking action. Dreamers, people who dream. I know people who've had the greatest ideas, the greatest inventions. The greatest singers will never be heard. The greatest songwriters will never have their songs sung. The greatest artists will never be watched. Mainly because they didn't have an agent, of course, but the real reason is they didn't take the action necessary. It happens to me all the time. A young person comes up and said, I want to be a rock star. I said, where are you singing now? And he said, no, I'm driving, I have to drive a UPS truck, and we just got married, we have a little baby. I said, where are you singing on weekends? Where are you singing at night? Because you have to be singing in prime time. So I think personal responsibility is one of the greatest things that we need to learn. And that's one of the missing things today in society, because we keep believing that we're entitled rather than empowered. If you're empowered, the power is inside and you take action. If you're entitled, you wait for someone else to give it to you. The problem is opportunity never knocks. It never comes with the phone call. Unfortunately, the incoming call wants something from you. The outgoing call is what gets something for you. I've never received a phone call from somebody who wants to make me rich. I've only received phone calls from people who want me to help them be more successful, solve a problem, but they're not calling me to say, what can I do for you today, Dennis? They're saying, Dennis, I need your help today, and I understand that. And that's why being proactive and responsible for your own success. And that is being able to take the risk to look foolish in the eyes of others. There never was a winner who wasn't a beginner. When you begin anything new and you get out of your comfort zone, and there is a comfort zone here, and the comfort zone is that most people are a thermometer. And a thermometer reacts to the outside world. We look at the thermometer and we see how it is outside. It's like looking out the window to see what kind of day it's going to be, looking at externals. Right. And many people look at the world situation, the government, the financial policy, their job, their income, their situation, and they determine that that's what determines their future. The truth is, the brain is a thermostat, not a thermometer. What you get is what you set. It's an automatic pilot. It's if you will, a guided missile. It is a GPS system. And what you do is you take your thermostat self-image and you put it on high. You put your imagination on high. The thermostat goes on and the heater comes up and heats you up to reach the image of the setting. But it doesn't do you any good to get money, because you'll bring the money back down to where your image is. So every time we have given money, and just money but not help, every time we've given fish, instead of teaching people how to fish, they run out of fish. But when you teach them how to fish, then they take responsibility, because then they say, if it is to be, it's up to me. Life is to do it with my creation, for others, to myself project. And I finally put myself behind the wheel in my transportation vehicle. And I said, it's your choice. What do I control? I control how I use my free time. What do I control? My thoughts. What do I control? My role models. What do I control? The way I respond to people. What do I control? Yeah, my communication. What else do I control? I control whether I speak or whether I'm quiet, whether I listen or whether I talk, whether I'm negative, whether I'm positive. I choose that. So I've learned a lot from people like Reinhard Niebuhr, who wrote the Serenity Prayer. Give me the serenity to accept the things I can, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Here's what I've done. I'd like to create a seminar for you right now called Change the Changeable, Accept the Unchangeable, and Remove Yourself from the Unacceptable. What do you control? Your reaction to what happens and your next thought and action. That's what you control, your response and your action. Change the unchangeable? No. You accept the unchangeable. Everything that has happened to this moment is history, and you learn from it, and you grow on it, and you look at what you've learned from it, but you don't live in the past, change the changeable, next thought and action, accept the unchangeable, history, and remove yourself from the unacceptable. What does that mean? Don't hang around crybabies, pity parties, group griping, grudge collecting. Don't watch all the negative stuff on the news. Don't hang around whiners. Winners are never whiners. In other words, you take control by controlling your immediate response to everything that happens. And that for me has been a life changer. I used to be Waitly come lately. I had a it's a great name. Wait Lee, wait for me. What have you done for me, Waitly, lately? I was always late. Why, I'm busy. Oh, I'm busy. I mean, I got all this stuff. So I was late for the plane, just barely got on. It's okay, I'm important. I'm first to the gate, Waitly, now. Why? Well, people told me my time was not important to them. Their time was not important to me. They told me that they didn't like the fact that I was always late, so I decided to change. So what I did is took personal responsibility, and I began to take this incredible winning from within ability. And I arrived at the airport early. I made other flight arrangements. There could be traffic, could be a delay. And I always now arrive early for appointments, never late. And people say, wow, you're really punctual. I said, yeah, I'm Dennis Swiftly now, but no more Dennis Rushley. So in other words, I've taken control of the things that I can control in my life, which are my own thoughts and actions. And I also control my anger, because anger is one letter short of danger. And anger is threatened value. And so no matter what anyone says to me, I take a deep breath and say, I understand how you could think and say the things you do, but I happen to feel a little differently, and if you're interested, I'll tell you. If you're not, it's okay. But I always say when people put me down, thank you very much for the feedback. I appreciate it. I'm into a self-improvement program and need all the help I can get. Thank you very much. So I never get upset.
Now, Dennis, let's go back to the thermostat versus the thermometer.
Right.
So give us an example. How would we set a thermostat? You gave a couple of examples: punctuality, being calm rather than angry. Is there a collection of ideals that we set a thermostat to?
Absolutely. Well, we set our thermostat on high value. So we set our thermostat on honesty. We set our thermostat on nutrition. I eat only when I'm hungry. Water is my favorite fitness drink. I eat fruits and vegetables, fiber-based carbohydrate, lean source protein, usually fish, sometimes chicken. So we go into this thermostatic setting. Practice makes permanent. So the more you think it, the more you internalize it. It becomes automatic, and the thermostat setting stays on high. So it stays on high.
And then your environment rises to meet the thermostat settings.
Yeah, the performance rises to the thermostat. The thermostat never rises to the performance. That's why I only had temporary success when I was young. Oh, I had success. I don't mean to say I was losing. I mean, I flew an airplane off a carrier.
Right.
I did certain things. I had.
We believe you.
Yeah. I did a few things right.
So to recap, the points thus covered, right? The first one is looking in the mirror.
Right.
It's self-perception, being true to where your passions are, looking at, are you really following what you are meant to do, or are you doing what society says you need to do? And if you are doing what society says you need to do, you want to use your prime time to start taking action towards your dreams. Number two, be honest with yourself and be honest with others. Treat others like they are important executives. Number third, as you do that, maintain high core values. Love yourself, believe in yourself. Think of yourself, know that you are a diamond ready to be polished and cut. Number four, accept personal responsibility. Set your thermostat to where you want it to be and watch the world around you rise to meet that thermostat setting.
Right, and then you'll end up with number 5.
Which is?
Live by desire instead of fear. Reward of success or penalty of failure, take your choice. You have to make a choice in life of whether you want to be motivated by have-tos and can'ts or want-tos and cans. I've always said success comes in cans, not in cannots. So do you have to work? No. You could choose to try to go on welfare. You could do something. You could live on the street. Do you have to work late? No, you choose to because there are things to do. You really don't have to do much in life. Everything's a choice. So when you live by desire, the reward of success, you're looking through the front windshield of your Ferrari. When you live in the past, you're looking through the rearview mirror, and you're looking at where you're coming from rather than where you're going to. So desire is the greatest way to live your life because it's the way you either train a dog or train a porpoise. You train a dog not to go outside the yard by an electric fence or a chain. You train them in the yard and finally they realize they have learned helplessness. Mm-hmm. You train an elephant by putting his foot in the chain and then he put a peg in the... After a while, you don't need a chain, you only need a little leash. So you train by fear, which is called operant conditioning, and that's learned helplessness. The more failure you have, the more you realize you don't have potential, and you live by have-tos and can'ts. But the dolphin or the porpoise at SeaWorld, they put the rope on the bottom of the pool. They put a tuna on the other side of the rope and they snap the rope and the dolphin goes across to get the tuna, which is a reward for going across the rope. Then they raise the rope to the top of the swimming pool, 2 tuna. So the dolphin goes over the rope and finally the pièce de résistance. They put the rope 12 feet above the pool and 3 tuna and a mackerel. And they give the dolphin a great reward for having done something so special. If you reward yourself, and if you look at the desired result instead of what happens if I don't do it, and I guess the best example I could ever use would be high wire walker. Picture a high wire walker, got a long pole, should have an umbrella or a parachute, but doesn't, walking across 2 tall buildings. What does a high wire walker do? Always looks to the ledge where he's going or she's going. 1 foot after the other to the ledge. Never, ever look down at the penalty of failure. 24 stories of or else. If you're going to be a winner in life, you have to go for the desired result, the reward of success, and never consider the penalty of failure. The things that would be so easy to do become so difficult to people because they're afraid of being foolish, of being rejected, of failing. The worst punishment is to be embarrassed when you didn't mean to be funny. That's the worst punishment. A child being rejected or laughed at, a person being looked at as being an outsider. The worst rejection is to feel foolish in the eyes of others, and that's why people don't go after their dreams. They're too worried about the penalty of failure, too worried about the reaction, and not excited enough about what's in front of them. So just like I talk the high wire story a lot, I actually do it in webinars and seminars. I actually put a plank 24 feet long, 24 inches wide on the floor. And what I do is put a $10 bill at one end, and I put a person from the audience on the other end. And you ought to see them. They're able to hop on 1 foot, backward on 1 foot, and then I blindfold them, and they can pick up a 10. They picked up 10 $100 bills, jumping backward. And then I said, this is getting expensive. So then I put it up imaginarily between 2 tall buildings. They say, I'm worried now. I said, don't worry, nothing down there. And I put a piece of cloth over it so you don't see the street. It's a little windy, but the plank is pretty firm. And then I put $1,000, maybe 10 $100 bills and a pebble on it so the wind won't blow it off. I put them at one end, and you know what? Almost no one is willing to go get the $1,000 they just got off me on the floor. Why? Because the reward is no longer great enough to overcome the risk of failure. Look for the reward, you go for it. Worry about the penalty, you fall for it. It is impossible to concentrate on the reverse of an idea. Just think about that. No, you don't lose weight. No, you don't repair a bad marriage. No, you don't stop being late. you're on time, you're trim, you have a good marriage. That's the goal. You don't want to come away from what you don't want. The mind cannot reverse that. It is impossible for the mind to take something that you say or think and flip it to the other side. You know, an example of this more close to home and more close to all of you would be a meeting I recently went to in a company. And the general manager of the company stood up and said, unless we get a 17% increase in productivity, we're going to close the plant in 6 months. Within 24 hours after the meeting, many of them quit, wouldn't you, if they were going to close the plant in 6 months? So did they hear the 17% increase? No. They heard close the plant in 6 months. So remember, when you're talking to somebody and you're thinking of something, think about the reward and stop dwelling on what happens if it doesn't work, because you'll move toward the reverse of what you want.
Dennis, thank you for those 5 ideas. Those were fascinating. And I'd like to ask you, could you quickly summarize the 5 for us?
Sure, because they're so much a part of me. Number 1, look in the mirror and see your talents and see your potential more than you could use in 100 lifetimes, and you have the barriers that are only invisible. Number 2, self-trust. Be honest. Be honest with where you are now. Be honest with your limitations as well as your assets. And by being honest, you'll develop the greatest skill of all in communication, mutual trust. Number 3, core values. The diamond is inside, just waiting for you to cut and polish it. Self-esteem. The deep down, inside the soul feeling of your own worth, regardless of your current performance. Remember, performance is a reflection of value, not a measure of it. Number 4, of course, is something that took me a long time to learn. Winners make it happen, losers let it happen. I'm behind the wheel of my car, I'm driving my plane, I'm creating my own life, living by choice instead of by chance. Personal responsibility. It's me, after all. And the final one, of course, is desire, the flame of desire. Winners dwell on the rewards of success. Losers dwell on the penalties of failure. Be a person who's obsessed with the desired result rather than the penalty of failure. If you put those 5 together, you'll be a person who turns attitude into action and virtual into reality.
Thank you, Dennis. So these are really 5 powerful mindset shifts. And what I love about ideas like that is as you bring them into your life, they fundamentally change how you function in the world. Now, I want to suggest just a simple little mind hack to help you retain these ideas. If you open up the workbook, you'll see these 5 ideas are there. It's in a fill-in-the-blanks format. So if you've been doing the workbook well and being disciplined and a good Mind Valley student, you've probably written down, filled in the blanks, and you probably have these 5 ideas written down in your workbook. Cut out that page or rip that page or take a picture of it in your iPhone and make sure you have that image on your desk, whether it's a ripped out piece of paper, the page from your workbook, or an iPhone picture. Make sure you look at that 24 hours from now, and then the next day, and then the next day, until these 5 ideas sink in and you can almost recite them from heart. When you're able to recite them from heart and maybe take these ideas and teach them to your kids or other people you work with or your friends, you know that you've fully embraced them. Because something Dennis said earlier really resonated with me. You knew this stuff before, right, Dennis? You read books on this.
Of course.
Your grandfather, you said, had that entire library.
Right.
But you still felt you were a loser because you were not living them.
Exactly.
And there's a difference between knowing this as a form of interest and actually being committed to these ideas. Now, some of you may want to take this to the next level. So I'm going to invite you to join us on our new 90-day program on the psychology of winning. And you guys, as you know, Psychology of Winning was the best-selling audiobook personal growth program in history. Still now today, according to Publishers Weekly, it has sold and has been listened to by more people than any other audiobook program. Over 100 million in revenue was generated from this one program when it was published in what year, 1970?
Well, 1978, the audio, and then the book came out in 1980, and the rest was history. It's just kept on.
2 million copies sold, right? So that's pretty powerful. Now, what we wanted to do here at Mind Valley is take Dennis's legacy and update it for this generation, for this year. But not just updated content-wise. As you guys know, this is going to be unveiled on our Quest learning platform. So what's happening is thousands of students are going to be enrolling in the new psychology of winning. We're all going to start on a particular start date. That's how Quest works. Everybody starts together. And how this program works is that over 12 weeks, Dennis is going to come on and teach you guys a powerful idea every day. So if you enjoyed these 5 ideas, and if you can see how these 5 ideas could instantly make an impact in your life, imagine getting 60 of these nuggets of information, right? So how it works is that every day for 12 weeks, you're going to log on to the Mind Valley Quest app and listen to Dennis for 10 to 20 minutes. And he's going to implant an idea in you. And these ideas build up. Now you're going to get a new lesson every day, Monday to Friday. Saturday and Sunday is catch-up time. And we go from week 1 to week 2. And at the end of 12 weeks, you've gone through a fundamental transformation. Dennis, there's a reason you picked 12 weeks or 90 days. Could you tell us why?
Because 90 days is the length of a season. And the farmers use it, and companies use it. Why do we have a quarterly report? So we can see how we did the last 90 days. Every public corporation has a quarterly report. 90 days is a length of time that you can wrap your mind around your goals and see actual progress. It's difficult in a month because there are interruptions, difficult in a week because you have priorities, but 90 days is the ideal time frame to make a permanent change in your life.
And what we found is that because of our new Quest learning model, the completion rate, students going through this program, the completion rate is through the roof. People have a genuine change in their lifetime. So there's a really important and exciting reason we wanted to publish this program in Mind Valley. Firstly, I was mind blown when I heard about the success that the Psychology of Winning online course had decades ago for the previous generation. And I wondered what would happen if we could bring this into a new generation. And if we could upgrade it from the curriculum, from the technology, and even put in the latest neuroscience and work with a living legend. And secretly, I wanted to do this because I just wanted to meet you too. Because I discovered your books on my father's bookshelf, 20, 25 years ago. Not to make you feel old, but that's the truth. And what Dennis teaches reminds me of this really incredible story I heard from Zig Ziglar, whom I know was a friend
Very
of
dear
yours.
friend. We started out together.
Right,
Same
exactly.
time.
You guys started out together. Now, Zig Ziglar, in an audio program I listened to, spoke about this time he was brought in a company to help managers improve overall performance in the company. So he got all of these managers in a room, and for 2 hours, he pushed them to make a list on a board of the qualities of key employees. So they wrote down A and B and C and D and all of these qualities. And then 2 hours later, he decided to keep pushing them. They were now tired. They were exhausted. He says, no, let's continue. Let's get more on this board. So they continued tossing out qualities of good employees. They went from 107, and after 1 additional hour, they went to 114, and they couldn't go anymore. 3 hours had passed. Then he said, okay, guys, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of these 114 qualities, and I'm going to write down an A or an S. And A means attitude and S means skill. And so he'd look at the quality. Positivity. Is that an attitude or skill? That's an attitude. Programming. That's a skill. Helpful. That's an attitude. Charisma. That's an attitude. Confidence. That's an attitude. Web design. That's a skill. Management. That's a skill. Right. Now at the end of that time, as they labeled everything attitude or skill, can you guess, whoever's watching this, can you guess what percentage were attitudes and what percentage were skills? Well, you know the story. 107 were attitude, 7 were skill. Now think about that for a moment. When we're hiring someone, when we're going to university, when we're getting educated, what are we trying to learn? We're trying to learn skills. We think skills get us the job. I've interviewed and hired, probably interviewed 1,000, 2,000 people, and I've been trained to look at their skills. But as a manager, if you ask me who are my best people, it's always the attitude. It's never the skill. And so what we've come to realize is that our education system is broken. The way we develop people in companies is broken. You want to hire and develop attitude and train for skill. That's what I learned from your good friend, Zig Ziglar. So I wondered what would happen if we could take the master of teaching people the right attitude, create an updated program for a new generation, and get this to people and companies and teenagers all around the world. Can we offset some of that bullshit that our education system teaches us by training us on skills that we can Google on our smartphone, but not teaching us the right attitudes to be a winner, to be successful, to make a freaking dent in the universe? That's why this program so resonates with me. That's why I'm excited about taking our own Mind Valley team of 100, 200 people through this program with their families and getting you guys into this program, because this man is a master of teaching you the right attitude. So when you think about those 5 things you just learned, those were all attitude shifts, wouldn't you say?
Definitely attitude shifts, and I can tell you what's shifting in the world. When I speak to Microsoft, for example, Microsoft China, all the top managers came in, and the head of all of them said, you're not going to get many questions because you're in soft stuff. I said, well, so are you. You got software, and so do I. But the software drives the hardware. And so I gave them just what you said. I said, people get fired for personal reasons. Think about it. Why do they get fired? They're late, they have a bad attitude, they don't feel good, they're angry, they procrastinate, they have all these things, and yet those are not skills. They know their job skills. They don't have to teach them that. What is going on all over the world in big companies now is they're teaching people right out of university and the MBAs how to communicate with themselves and other people. They're teaching personal development because you cannot separate professional development from personal development today. They're all the same because they're all based on your belief system and the way you communicate with people, but most importantly, the way you think and communicate with yourself. Therefore, it takes employees and makes entrepreneurs out of them. That's what you want. And you want managers to become leaders. You want people who dialogue with each other and innovate rather than just do what you tell them. And that's the big change in corporations today.
And that's why you can actually sign up for this program as a company and get a discounted rate for all your employees if you're a manager or a boss. But if you're an individual, this program is your path to career success. Because remember, it's attitude that truly matters. And the attitudes you learn here are the attitudes of Olympians, of top coaches, of NASA astronauts. And this man is the master trainer. But the thing is, this program is so much more than just boosting your career. So ask yourself this: do I have a runaway career that's growing and growing and growing every quarter? Am I a champion at the family level? My spouse, my kids look up for me and see me as a role model? Am I in the peak of my health and capabilities? Do I wake up every day excited about plunging into life and doing what I'm here on planet Earth to do? If you can answer yes to these 4 questions, this program is great for you because it's going to help you take those to the next level. But if you cannot answer yes to all of these questions, this program is even more relevant to you because all of us need to get there. That's the mark of a well-balanced human being living his true potential. And all of us should be living at that state. Education system doesn't really teach us to get there. Psychology of winning gets you there. Anything you'd like to add, Dennis?
I would, Vishen, in the sense that winning and losing are habit forming. We learn by observation, imitation, and repetition, and everything you'll ever be is who you observe, what you read, what you listen to, and what you watch. Why do we do what we do when we know what we know? Because we don't do what we know. I know that. I didn't. We do what we've learned. And what we've learned today is mostly by subliminal. It comes in quite by accident, watching the evening news, role models, TV, celebrities. Learning takes place beyond our notice and becomes a habit like brushing your teeth or driving your car. I think the new psychology of winning will make winning your new habit, and it will make you be able to live your life without even trying or thinking about what you're doing.
So if you're interested in enrolling in this program, the information is below this video. And as a special thank you for watching this masterclass, you've unlocked a further enrollment discount on this program. Do not close this page, because this discount is only unlocked when you get to the end of the masterclass. It's how we reward you for being a diligent student, for staying with us, for investing your time in this, and for being part of this wonderful audience watching me and Dennis. So Keep this page open. You can read all about the program and you can enroll. And if you're a manager or if you run a company, if you want to get a group discount for your team, this program can so change the culture of your company and elevate the career success of your people and take your business further. There's a link below where you can learn about corporate plans for this program. Dennis, what do you think happens when companies go through this together?
Well, there's a tremendous change. When companies go through it together, they stop being boss language oriented, and instead of a meeting where somebody comes in with an agenda and gives a presentation, they ask questions because they empower everyone to make a contribution. And it allows everyone to be a member of a winning team who count here. My opinion counts, and that's what they get out of it. And it becomes a synergistic winning team rather than people who are yes people to their boss.
Right. And the cool thing about the way we've designed this program on Quest is that, so much has passed since the last 3 decades or so when your work first got published. We now can bring in online community. So not only are you learning this program through the concept of Mindvalley's micro-learning model, our Quest platform, but all the students who start this program together engage in a community. So on day 1, everyone, thousands of people are getting the first video from Dennis, and then they speak about it in the community. This goes all the way to day 90. People are conversing in the community, and what we found is that this community develops a culture of its own. People support each other. And companies are putting in many of their best people in this community together. And so we're learning from other people committed to growth. And this just carries all of us forth on this wave of collaboration towards completion. And at the end of 90 days, people come out of these Quest programs fundamentally changed. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful system. Again, all of that is below. Now you can try out the new Psychology of Winning completely risk-free. Just like any program on Mindvalley, you can enroll in the program, and if you don't so much as like the sound quality on an audio, with one email to our award-winning customer support team at support@mindvalley.com, you can get a full unconditional refund, no questions asked. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this masterclass. Now some of you are reading the page below and are interested in enrolling in our full program. What I'm going to do is keep Dennis here for a while. Sorry Dennis, you're stuck with us for a few more minutes, and we're just going to rapidly answer frequently asked questions about the program. Okay, now the first question is, how much time does this program take?
Well, it only takes a little time a day. It takes about 15 minutes a day, because every program, every video ends up with a question to ask yourself and an action step that you need to take for that day. So it's really like 10 to 15 minutes a day, which you can fit into any busy schedule. It's 5 days a week, 3 days watching and then asking questions of yourself and then taking actions, and 2 days where we reinforce everything you've learned by audio and then giving you exercises and assessments, things for you to do and interact so you can internalize them. And that way you can talk to your colleagues as you get up on the internet and begin to collaborate with one another. So it takes 15 to 20 minutes at the most a day for let's say 3 months period.
Right.
Once you've done that, I think that it's possible to keep thinking. I think it's going to be automatic.
The whole idea here is to lock in these thought models to make it automatic. As we were saying earlier, when an astronaut has to make a split-second decision, or an Olympian, it's an automatic impulse. What we're doing over here is taking these ideas of the winner's mindset, the winner's attitude, and making them automatic impulses within you. So you don't have to think about them. And this is why the program takes 90 days. You don't create those type of shifts by putting you through a 9-hour audio course over one weekend. It happens gradually. And the good news is, because it's happening gradually through our model, which is called micro-slicing content, the number of people who complete this goes through the roof, because you're only investing 15 to 20 minutes every day, Monday to Friday, over 3 months. And at the end of these 3 months, at the end of these 12 weeks, at the end of these 90 days, these have become automatic responses in you, and it's fun. So you're going to be logging in 5 days a week for 12 weeks. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is a video. Tuesday, Thursday is an audio. And because this program is available as an app, you can listen on the go while you're shopping, while you're on the treadmill, while you're driving. You can listen to an audio, so it's really easy to consume. Dennis, the next question is, how fast do you see results?
I think you'll begin to see results right away, and that will inspire you and motivate you to keep going through the program. But after the first month, I think you'll be sailing through it, and you'll actually realize why the software is driving the hardware. And after the 3 months,
And it's fun if you do it as a team because you see how everybody benefits. Now, next question, is this suitable for business? Absolutely yes, we have answered that. Is this suitable for teenagers?
it's very good for teenagers. Teenagers are getting a lot of mixed information today, especially celebrity information. Many teenagers are believing that it is the look, the feel, the style, if you will, the external that counts. And for teenagers, it's so important for them to learn that it's really inside your own passion. Don't be like them unless them are winners.
Fantastic. So that's it for the FAQ, and thank you guys for joining us. I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible enroll in the program. Again, keep this page open. Don't close this page, because on this page you get a special discount you will not find anywhere else on the web. It's only on this page. It's only activated after you watch this webinar. So I look forward to seeing you in this program. Now, Dennis and I are going to stay back. Those of you who have enrolled, stay with us, because what we want to do is spend 5 minutes showing you some of the hidden gems within this program, so that when the program kicks off, you'll know exactly how to begin, you'll know exactly what to do, and you'll be able to get the best experience from it. You ready, Dennis?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the first thing is, when you enroll in the program, you're going to get an email from us, and this email will welcome you into Mindvalley's Quest platform. Now, you can take a Quest content directly on home.mindvalley.com. Just go to home.mindvalley.com. It's where you consume our courses. It's where you consume your subscriptions. It's all in the same place. You only have to remember that one link, home.mindvalley.com. Now, here's the important thing. For Quest, we've created a separate app called Quest by Mindvalley. Get on the App Store or get on your Android App Store and search for Quest by Mindvalley. Download the app. Now, if you already have a Mindvalley login and password, it's super easy. You use that same password to access this program on our web, on the app. If you're a new customer, we'll ask you to create a login and a password. Now, the beauty of the program is you're going to be spending around 15 minutes a day going through the content, and then we strongly encourage you to dive into the community and leave a post, share an insight, communicate with someone. So my tip to you guys is, make sure you carve out a specific 20-minute chunk every day that you know you're going to listen to this program, Monday to Friday. Now, many of you might be thinking, gosh, I'm so busy. Do I really have time for this? Let me tell you this, right? The 20 minutes that you carve out for this program, take it out of your work. I'm actually saying that. Take it out of your work. Because what this program will do, and the mistake most people make, is that they stay stuck in a rut at work doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again because they're too busy to step away and improve how they're doing things. But when you break that pattern, if you're willing to take 20 minutes away from your work and invest in your personal growth, that's when you start seeing that new ideas come to you. Your attitude shift. You start making greater breakthroughs in your career. I was found as an entrepreneur that my greatest breakthroughs came not from repeatedly doing the same thing, but stepping back and learning some new aspect of personal growth.
Right.
So Dennis, what would be your tips for this new batch of students about to start this program?
Go into it with an open mind and a feeling that you're really going to get something out of it, because I guarantee you that's what's going to happen to you. You're going to get tips about yourself that you never dreamed about. You're going to find out why you're the expert on yourself, why you should be your best coach and role model, why you should be your own mentor. You're going to learn about the limitations that are invisible that are holding you back. You're going to learn why you're so valuable and as good as anybody else, but no better than anyone. You're going to learn how to use your imagination to work for you rather than against you. You're going to learn how to turn virtual reality into reality, and you're going to learn how to get laser focused, to cut right through all the noise, to get your passion and turn it into achievable goals. And finally, you're going to learn how to communicate with yourself in a positive way, in a healthy way, and learn how to communicate with those who look to you for guidance and who you're working with, so that you can make a team of winners and champions.
And the best part is we're doing this together. Thousands of students going through the program together and being able to access and connect with each other in an online community. And I cannot wait to be part of this community with you, to get started with you, and to take you on this journey with Dennis Waitley.
Thank you, Vishen, very much. It's great to be with you.
Thank you, Dennis. It was such a pleasure having you on Mind Valley Academy.
It's my pleasure. You're the new generation of champions. And yeah, people ask me why I do this. And I do this because I love it. But I love helping people the most. They ask me why I don't play golf, and I said I'm not good at it, and it ruins a good walk. They asked me why I don't fish, and I said because I only eat one at a time, and I don't like to kill fish. I only like to eat them. So why would I fish, play golf, or travel the world, which I already do? But I travel the world creating winners. And what could be a better thing to do with my life? And I thank you so much for making it possible.
Thank you guys for joining us. I hope you had an incredible time. Please remember to look at your notes tomorrow from this masterclass so it sticks in you, and I will see you on the start date. The start date for this batch is directly below this video. Click and roll. Those of you who are in the program, I cannot wait to get started with you. And we have, for the first time, several companies joining in with their batch of employees. So this is going to be double the fun. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.